Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time for the Week 12 running back rankings. You can find the sheet that we will be looking at, going through this tier by tier, may I say, up on the website, www.theFFForge.com. There are links down in the description, and also you can see I've got projections on here that you can see. But if you like a simpler approach than what you're seeing on the screen, there is also this tab at the bottom of the page that you can click. With that being said, I think let's just get right on into this. I do want to quick say thank you to members of this channel. I appreciate you all so very, very much. It helps a lot. And let's get going here with the first tier. My running backs 1 through 11. It's a bigger tier. I haven't really looked at this since last night, so I forgot how big of a tier we started on. These are our must-start running backs. Kicking off with Joe Mixon up at the number 1 spot. Look at that. How crazy. Then we've got Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Isaiah Pacheco. Assuming, of course, that he is playing, going up against Carolina, there's really no way that you can keep him out of my lineup as long as there's no real negative reports about his usage. I'm going to play him. Carolina's the best single matchup that there is for running backs, and Kansas City will exploit that regardless of who's at running back position. But like I said, for the rankings here, I am projecting Isaiah Pacheco to be the starter. Christian McCaffrey, my running back 6, Devon Achane, Kenneth Walker the third, Kyren Williams, David Montgomery, and Josh Jacobs wraps up this first tier of running backs. These are all the must-start guys. Really no need to get too much more into this. I think it should all pretty much make sense why you're starting these guys, and this is the order I've decided to land on them. Of course, that order could change as the week goes along, and that's why you should think about joining me live here on YouTube 1.5 hours prior to kickoff, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. I will have any updates. I will have the rankings up on the screen, and of course, that will include any updates that I do to the rankings. Also, Saturday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we always hang out here, and it's a Q&A session, trades, start-sit questions, all of that available from 7 p.m. till 10, 11, 3, 4 hours, sometimes like 2.5 hours, depending on exactly how busy it is and how I'm feeling. And then on Sunday mornings prior to kickoff as well, 2.5 hours prior to kickoff, I'm available for any of your start-sit questions. We've been moving that up earlier as well. That is the second tier that you're seeing on the screen. Jonathan Taylor, Brian Robinson Jr., James Conner, and Aaron Jones are my 4 running backs that fill my running backs 12 through 15. And that brings us on to my first fade of the week. That's Jonathan Taylor. And you say, well, what's that? Why is he highlighted in red? I thought red was good. In this case, no, we're fading the red, and we're going to have a couple of players highlighted in green, and those are my loves. And I always like to be transparent and just review how I did the previous week as well, and then share that information with you. And my loves and my fades last week for the running back position, I loved Jaylen Warren, faded Najee Harris. We kind of tossed that out the door once Jaylen Warren got injured on Wednesday. That threw my whole theory out of the window at that point. I revoked the green tag on Jaylen Warren, moved him down. Najee Harris might have moved a spot or two up, or I did move like a spot or two up, moved him up a little bit, felt more confident in him. For the love zone, Nick Chubb was in a very disappointing, gave us, I should say, a very disappointing 5 fantasy points. That did not go like I had anticipated. That's actually kind of frightening in terms of the Nick Chubb, rest of season outlook. This is looking like my fears for Nick Chubb coming back and holding on to him at draft time and everything are kind of coming true. And the worst case scenario is that you're going to miss out on a couple of big games from him because he's going to start out so slow. We'll see. For the fades, the other fade I should say that I had was James Cook. And if I told you that he had 27 total yards from scrimmage, you'd tell me that this was a very good fade, so let's just leave it there. That was an excellent fade. Good job, me. Handshake myself on that one. There weren't 3 touchdowns or something from James Cook that led to a very good day. Let's ignore that fact. This week, my first fade, Jonathan Taylor. Why are we fading him? Well, he's going up against Detroit. It is a very good matchup. I still wouldn't sit him myself, but be prepared to be disappointed. Be prepared for a mediocre day. Maybe not one of those bigger Jonathan Taylor days, and maybe that will influence a lineup decision somewhere else, but I'm definitely not making any kind of crazy declaration of sitting him for, I don't know, let's say Amir Abdullah or something crazy like that. We're not going to do that, okay? Let's not go there. That's going to bring us on to this next tier of running backs. My running backs 16 through 19 starts off with Najee Harris, followed by Tyrone Tracy, Bucky Irving, and J.K. Dobbins to wrap this tier up. You can see this steep decline, sudden decline in the projections of players matching this cutoff for the most part. I'm actually going to move Najee up a tier. I'm not sure why I had him down a tier. This has nothing to do with the projections. I feel like I was more concerned about the Cleveland matchup than I should have been at the time of making that tier cutoff choice, something like that. But otherwise, we do have my first love of the week, and that is going to be Bucky Irving here, all the way up at running back 18. It's probably the highest that I've ranked him all season. And in terms of who will it be this week in this Tampa Bay backfield, the Giants are in a three-way tie for allowing the second most yards per rush against them at 5.1 yards per carry. And to me, that is something that favors Bucky heavily. He is the better rushing running back, the better guy between the tackles, etc. To be fair, they are, that being the New York Giants, also a near top 10 matchup, maybe they're 11th, for receiving backs as well. So Rashad could also do fine in this game. Of course, that's very possible. But we're going to stack one more thing on this. I think that with the return of Mike Evans this week, timing up that with the performance of the running backs so far this season, and that they're coming off of a bye week, that this team might have used that time to change up how they're going to be attacking teams and maybe move Bucky into more of a primary RB1 role and move Rachaad White back into this like kind of third down role. Probably just a swapping of like 10 to 15% in usage, nothing huge, but still enough to move Bucky up a kind of a notch here in terms of what we're going to be thinking about him going forward. I think that's possible. Obviously, there's no way to truly do that, and that only helped me move him up a spot or two in the rankings and or feel more comfortable giving him a little bit of boost in my rankings. Obviously, that is speculation based on nothing but something that I would probably think about doing if I was the coach of this team. And that brings us on to this next tier of running backs, from DeAndre Swift at my running back 20 on down, Chuba Hubbard, Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard, and Rachaad White. In terms of Chuba Hubbard, and I'll touch on DeAndre Swift in just a second, but for him, it is a very tough matchup going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I took a bit off of the top of the projections due to the Jonathan Brooks coming out party, whatever. He's going to be joining this team, going to be getting used as a running back, and I think quite potentially a little bit more than Miles Sanders had. So I just chopped a little bit of the work out of Chuba Hubbard just to kind of prepare for that possibility is all. So with that out of the way, it came to a very tough decision here with Chuba Hubbard and DeAndre Swift. Maybe a tougher decision than it would have been if it wasn't for the return, the beginning of Jonathan Brooks' career in Carolina. And for this, both Kansas City and Minnesota, obviously, they're very tough running back. I shouldn't say obviously, but you probably know that by now. Both of them very good against the run. Both have vulnerabilities, however, through the air, and these teams could attack that with these running backs. Both Chuba Hubbard, DeAndre Swift are viable running backs in the receiving game. I just trust Swift to do so a little bit more in what's also the better of the two matchups between Minnesota and Kansas City, so he kind of won the tiebreakers all around there for me. Then Ramondre Stevenson, my second and final fade of the week. Ramondre has been very up and down this season. He's tied for running back 26 right now. The experts are high on him, however. And I think that's because Miami is a top 10 running back matchup on the season. I've talked about this through the past couple of weeks, and I think we're seeing it a little bit in the fantasy points given up. I think this is coming true to an extent, and maybe people haven't quite caught on to it yet. But the absence of an offense for the second half of the season allowed teams to run on Miami a lot more than they can afford to do with Tua back with this offense. Much more healthy than they were for most of the season, scoring 25-plus points most weeks right now. So, just to give you a little bit of evidence here, 4 weeks, in the 4 weeks since Tua came back after his concussions, James Conner, lead running back of Arizona, right? 53 yards. Rushing yards. I am very specifically just looking at rushing yards here. James Cook, 44 rushing yards. Kyren Williams, 62 rushing yards. Alexander Madison, 19 rushing yards. So Nothing crazy. They're not allowing players to have these big weeks like you would think of a, what not too long ago was, I think, a top 5 running back matchup in the league. And they also allow the 5th fewest targets, or I should say teams have targeted their running backs the 5th fewest times against Miami. So that's not really been an area of the game that teams have normally been attacking Miami anyways on the season. And for those reasons, I am nervous about Ramondre Stevenson. That's going to bring us on to my next tier of running backs, going from running back 25 through 28. This is my chance to let you know that I do have up to 55 running backs ranked this week, or I think there's like 3 running backs that I have not ranked, so another 20 plus running backs ranked. If you need those rankings, you can find them up on the website, you know that. To finish this off, my running back 25 is Austin Ekeler. That's followed by Javonte Williams, Rico Dowdle, and Amir Abdullah. Interesting choice here between Austin Ekeler, Javonte Williams. Really good matchup there for Austin Ekeler versus Dallas, but we're not looking at that. We're just going to look at Javonte Williams versus Rico Dowdle, because this was, to me, the tougher decision between the two. And what I ended up doing was going with the guy who is less reliant upon a touchdown. Both Las Vegas and Washington are good running back matchups. A difference of a half yard per rush is what separates the two. However, running backs have been targeted 5.4 times per game compared to 3.3 times per game, with nearly double the receptions per game, 5 versus 2.7, in favor of Las Vegas. So we'll take that receiving upside for Javonte Williams over Rico Dowdle. Once again, will Austin Ekeler remain above these two in my rankings through the rest of the week? I don't know for sure, but that does lead us into the top ranked running back, the second love, not top ranked. He's ranked 28th. But my second love of the week here in Amir Abdullah. Denver is tied for the 4th most targets. That's the opponent here, Denver. And receptions, 2 running backs allowed against them. So teams have obviously been utilizing the running backs in the receiving game against them at a very high rate. And they've also allowed the 5th most passing yards, 2 running backs out of the backfield, or wherever they're lined up, but to the running back position. This is not a ceiling game against Denver. The touchdown upside is not fantastic here. Denver is extremely efficient against the run. They're very good at stopping the run, but that's not why I love Amir Abdullah this week. I'm in it for the 8 plus targets. Once again, I just talked about the receiving game, the targets to the running backs. That is a high amount. They do that at a high rate against Denver. The NFL has, and I don't see any reason why Las Vegas wouldn't. Especially if Amir Abdullah is your starting running back, that's his skill set. He's not very good at running between the tackles. That's why he's not even been tried out in that role. But to me, this is what I'm looking for as the stat line. I'm looking for like 20 rushing yards, roughly, 6 receptions, and 45 receiving yards. In half PPR, that's going to get you to 9.5 fantasy points. And picking somebody up off the waiver wire in a pinch and using them and getting 9.5 fantasy points is a delight. So I would take that all day, and I think that's very possible. I mean, he could have 10 plus targets, which might get us into the 60, 70 receiving yards and a little bit more of those half points for the receptions. So that's going to be it for the running back position. Let me quickly show you the running backs who I am currently not ranking. Those running backs are Kareem Hunt, assuming that Isaiah Pacheco's back and there's no real news on the usage. I just assume Pacheco comes back into at least 90% of his normal role. Alexander Madison and Zamir White also holding back, which of course, if both of them are playing, that changes things for my love of the week in Amir Abdullah. But for now, we're anticipating them both missing this week. So there we go. Thank you very, very much. And I will see you later on today with my... the wide receiver video came out earlier today. I will see you tomorrow morning or evening, whenever you decide to visit. But quarterbacks, tight ends video comes out in the morning. Peace out.